for example. That's what was so remarkable about the Lakers winning the championship last year, is that I didn't think that they had the depth to do it. I thought that they needed another transaction cycle. Let them spend their cap space on those guys and then go add depth. And that's why that championship has put them in such great shape, because now they get this year where they get their exceptions and they're able to use them on guys like Wesley Matthews, use them on guys like Montrezl Harrell. And then, if you're a championship-level team, especially in the glamour market, you're going to do well usually on minimum contract guys, which they did with Marc Gasol. So some of it was just the cycle of team building. It just happens that they do it walking around with their brand-new gold trophy.
Windy, they've got that true top two stars, and now they have depth, which makes it all the more important for other teams that want to contend to try to get as close to that as they can. The Bucks don't have a true number two, and what they added, Drew Holiday, is nice, but I described it as you pay more than you should for the soda because you want the souvenir cup, and the souvenir cup is, of course, Giannis. It's worth it to give up what you did for Drew Holiday if you get that. Otherwise, you haven't really gotten that much better, especially with the Bogdan deal now dissolving. Do we have anything in terms of whispers coming out of Milwaukee about how the latest moves have affected or not Giannis's decision making?
The Bucks have remained confident. I have to say this, since the day the season ended, they weren't feeling great about everything at that time, but talk to those people. They're like, look, Giannis is not like Kevin Durant. Giannis is not like LeBron. This is a different guy. We believe he's all in with us. We believe he's going to stay. And they have consistently said that. They sort of joke, what are you guys going to talk about for the next year when Giannis re-signs with us? And I say, let's find out. They felt that they had to make an upgrade to Drew Bledsoe. I'm sorry, to Eric Bledsoe.
Drew Bledsoe would be interesting.
Drew Bledsoe, he gives them nothing. Drew Bledsoe gives them nothing.
Good on the breakaway pass, yeah.
They felt like, they were a 60-win team a couple of years in a row. They felt that was the position that they had to make the upgrade on, and they went very aggressively with 3 first-round picks to go get Drew Holiday. And they feel that is a major upgrade. Now, do I look at them and say, boy, look at that team and look at what they had with the Lakers, and boy, all of a sudden I think Milwaukee has stepped ahead? No, I don't. But here's the thing: if Giannis recommits, if Giannis resigns, whether it's this weekend or it's in 2 weeks, he has until December 21st. The Bucks get an A++ for this offseason. Not necessarily because I think that they made the greatest moves, but getting that player to stay with you, to give you runway, is as great of an accomplishment as a team like the Bucks can have. They haven't been to the finals since 1974. You could make the argument that the most relevant thing that's happened in the Bucks franchise in the last 40 years is Kareem Abdul-Jabbar saying, I would like to be traded. Now you have the best player you've seen in 4 decades. You have him potentially saying, I want to stay here. To me, if that trade of Drew Holiday gets them Giannis to recommit, they are the overwhelming winners of the offseason. They got a lot of work to do, but that's what, the value of a superstar like that in today's NBA, that's what it is.
We're talking to ESPN NBA insider Brian Windhorst. It's Chiney and Golick Jr., Spain and Fitz filling in. So stick there for a second. If he doesn't sign, when we look back at this offseason, it's easy for us to say, why didn't the Bucks? But what should the Bucks have done if they wanted to be more aggressive?
Well, I think, getting Bogdanovich would have been a double upgrade, because if you look at the kind of player he is, I don't know if the average NBA fan knows about this guy. And, he wasn't a star in Sacramento, but he's got an incredible track record of being a clutch player in Europe. Whether it was with the national team in Serbia or his Euro teams, pretty sure he led Partizan Belgrade, a Serbian pro team, to a title in Europe. And he's been great for the Serbian national team. Like, this is the type of guy that will come through in the playoffs. And if you go back and look, the Bucks just didn't have those types of players. And Bledsoe is one of those guys who didn't. And you go back and look at Drew Holiday. Drew Holiday at times has been terrific in the playoffs. So their game plan is, we wanted to go get some playoff difference makers who we think will be so much better for us, especially a guy like Holiday, who a couple years ago had sort of a legendary series shutting down Damian Lillard and leading the Pelicans to an upset win in that series. And they were hoping to add those two guys. So I look at Holiday and say, boy, they really did a nice upgrade there. They should be really different in the playoffs. And then if it was Bogdanovich, I was like, wow, they would have had two. But now I'm like, well, they added a couple of role players. And so, you know, if the Bogdanovich thing had never been, you know, been leaked out there, had never been come to fruition, I think we'd look at everything about this Bucks offseason completely differently. But the stakes are so dramatic. And, you know, look, if you just go out there and look, you look what some of these teams have done, their moves have indicated that they are hedging. The way the Raptors, the way the Heat, the way the Knicks, the way the Mavericks have operated this postseason, they're not 100% convinced Giannis is extending it. It's not just, you know, the big bad media out there who wants to see him follow through with it.
The Lakers added Wes Matthews, and they lose Danny Green. So Danny Green, who I like a lot, was not super effective for them. But they bring in a guy who can maybe do some of the same things, 3-and-D. Dennis Schroeder. They're going to lose Rondo, but Schroeder is, we'll see if he can be playoff Rondo, but regular season Schroeder last season was way better than regular season Rondo. Montrezl Harrell's a nice piece as part of a rotation, and Marc Gasol is a stretch five. He can stretch the floor, and he can still defend. How did they make all this work from a contract standpoint? It seems like they have more money to spend than everyone else. How do they do this?
Well, they had guys that sacrificed. You know, Wes Matthews came in at the $3.6 million biannual exception. Montrezl Harrell was at the $9.3 million mid-level, so they had those two exceptions there. You know, Schroeder was in a trade, of course, and then, you know, Mark came in at the veteran minimum exception, which is at $2.6 million. So that's the beauty of when you have a championship team, that veterans are willing to kind of sacrifice financially to come try to win a championship here. And I liked all the moves. I'm not as sold on Gasol as a lot of people. I just looked at him last year. Mm-hmm. I didn't think he had much gas left in the tank, you know, especially in the playoffs here. So we'll see when, we'll see when we get going here if we see a little bit of a different Marc Gasol. But yeah, and then you bring Markieff Morris back, of course, on the veteran minimum exception today too. So they basically
LeBron does this in every town he's in. He did this in Cleveland. He did it in Miami. He gets all the good players who used to be really good and still have something left to take virtually no money to win a championship.
Five guys, I think, will cost you like $20 million this year, right? I mean, that's amazing, and that's the beauty of. You have LeBron or ED, and guys want to go, try to win a championship.
Got to tip my hat to two people, Bobby. One, Rob Pelinka, who I was very skeptical about, but he's pushed all the right buttons, and he's made it all work. He's done an excellent job. And it's great being wrong about stuff. You learn something,
Makes you better, doesn't it? It makes
I love it. Yeah, it does. It does. No, I was wrong about Pelinka. I thought, oh, come on, what's he doing? He knew better than I did. That's one. And two, Jeannie Buss. Jeannie Buss inherits the franchise from her father, who's by so much the greatest owner in the history of American team sports. It's embarrassing. He's lapping the field a couple times. And his dying wish, essentially, is I want this team, this family business, to keep my family together. And he therefore puts Jeannie in charge of business and Jim in charge of basketball. And Jeannie wanted to respect his wishes, stayed with Jim probably a year longer than she should have, did everything she could to try to make it work. When she finally saw, look, I have responsibility to L.A. and the Lakers to do this right, and she lets go of Jim essentially in that role. Since that moment, in other words, when the handcuffs came off Jeannie Buss, and talk about handcuffs to have on you, you're being a good daughter and family member, right, to your late great father. But as soon as she took the handcuffs off, 3 years later, they're working on a repeat, Bobby. Like, oh my God, what a stewardship the Lakers are still under Jeannie Buss. What do you make of how Michael Jordan and the Charlotte Hornets are building their team? As I've often mentioned, the irony of Jordan is he is the Michael Jordan of bad owners. But what do you think about what he's done so far this offseason?
I'm not a big fan of the Gordon Hayward signing. I really am not. I mean, I'm not comfortable committing $120 million for him. Maybe I would be comfortable in 1 year at a pretty good number, but I just get concerned on that back end of that contract, years 2, 3, and 4, and I just think it's an overpay, and they're paying for what the Gordon Hayward of the past, and maybe not even the Boston past, maybe more of the Charlotte past. I mean, the Utah past, where he was really good. And I get it. I know, and I've been in rebuilds, and you get to a point, Max, where you just like want to wave the white flag and do something as an overpay and go from a 30-win team to a 40-win team and compete for an 8 seed here. And I think that's kind of where Charlotte is doing that. It's kind of not it's not a Mitch Kupchak type move, because Mitch has been up front and basically said, hey, we're not going to spend our cap space. We're going to focus on Devontae Graham and PJ Washington, Miles Bridges, guys like that. We're going to draft and just kind of build it.
LaMelo Ball.
LaMelo, we're going to build it organically, and then all of a sudden you come in with 4 for $120 for Gordon Hayward.
You know what I think it is, Bobby? I think it is, first of all, I agree. This is the kind of move the Knicks would normally make, hilariously make. Michael Jordan now makes the Knicks not the worst run franchise. Well, they have a worse owner than Jordan, but at least they have more competent people in their front office now. I'm less of a fan of Mitch Kupchak now than I used to be, based on the last, let's say, 10 or 12 years. But it's like the Catfish Hunter signing for the Yankees in the 70s. They wanted to get to respectable, so they overpay for an old guy who helped them get to respectable, knowing the back end of the deal wouldn't be good. Of course, there's a cap in the NBA, which makes it different. But one thing I liked about Gordon Hayward on Boston is his passing was excellent in the starting lineup. And so maybe, Bobby, maybe he ages a little bit better than you might think. Like, of course not as a max contract player, but as a useful starter to a team with a lot of young talent. What do you think about that?
He fits a veteran role, and when you kind of, he becomes probably more of the number 1 or 2 option than 3 or 4 that he was in Boston here. But this is kind of we'll see where this is 3 years from now or even next year. The other thing I didn't like either, they stretched that Batum contract, and they're basically got, and about stretch provision, when you got Noah on your books in New York and Dang on the books in LA, that money just sits there, Max, and they've got $9 million sitting there for the next 3 years.
It's too bad about Batum. Batum, before he got paid and before he went to Charlotte, was so good, and then I don't know, he stopped.